You have a critical deadline approaching, yet you find yourself organizing your digital files, deep cleaning your kitchen, or scrolling through a meaningless feed. High achievers are particularly prone to this, trading essential tasks for pointless busy work. This behavior is often dismissed as a lack of discipline, but true procrastination is the voluntary delay of a planned action. You want to do the work. You have the intention. This is entirely distinct from apathy or simple laziness, where the desire to act never existed in the first place. The paradox lies in the choice. We actively push tasks away, fully aware that delaying will only compound our stress and sabotage our own goals. We choose temporary comfort, knowing it guarantees future pain. This self-sabotage is not a character flaw. It is a structural malfunction in how the human brain processes time, stress, and reward. The issue begins with a divide in human psychology between the present self and the future self. The present self craves immediate comfort, while the future self is left to deal with the fallout of those decisions. This chart plots motivation against time. Notice how the motivation line collapses completely when a deadline is weeks away, only to spike vertically in the final hours. This is temporal discounting, a mechanic where the brain devalues any reward that isn't immediate. Look at the secondary line representing immediate distractions. It exerts a constant high appeal. Because the payoff for scrolling social media is instant, the brain calculates its value as mathematically superior to the distant success of finishing a project. The distraction overpowers the primary task until the sheer panic of the deadline finally tips the scales. This failure of time perception is heavily documented in academic literature. Researchers identify temporal discounting as a primary driver of behavioral delay, proving that the human mind naturally struggles to assign weight to future outcomes. Our ancient biology evolved to secure immediate resources, food and shelter for today, not to plan for a retirement account or a final exam. We are wired to betray our future selves because our survival instincts prioritize guaranteed, immediate relief over abstract, distant achievements. To understand why we default to immediate relief, we have to look past psychological concepts and examine the physical anatomy of the brain. This diagram illustrates the push and pull dynamic between the prefrontal cortex, responsible for long-term planning, and the deeper limbic system. Confronting complex tasks triggers the limbic system's amygdala, shutting down your rational pathways. Distractions then trigger an immediate dopamine release to soothe the induced panic. Clinical research validates this anatomical battle. Studies consistently define procrastination as a prevailing form of self-regulatory and self-control failure, driven by this exact short-term emotion regulation. Procrastination is an active biological defense mechanism. Your brain is self-soothing by treating a difficult assignment exactly like a predator it needs to escape. To stop the limbic system from hijacking our goals, we have to identify the specific negative emotions that cause the amygdala to panic. Often, these emotions masquerade as simple boredom or tiredness. The primary trigger is the fear of failure, closely tied to perfectionism. When an individual holds irrational beliefs that a task must be executed flawlessly, the resulting distress paralyzes action. The brain chooses delay to avoid the pain of an imperfect attempt. Another major trigger is decision paralysis. When a project involves a high volume of choices or intense complexity, it overloads the executive system. An initial hesitation cascades into an ongoing delay because the brain cannot process the next step. Add generalized task overwhelm, the fear of eventual success, and digital devices offering frictionless dopamine, and the conditions for total avoidance are perfectly set. The hidden costs of this avoidance are severe. Delaying the work breeds chronic anxiety, degrades cognitive performance when you finally rush to finish, and slowly erodes your self-efficacy, your belief in your own capability. Escaping negative emotions creates a vicious cycle where short-term mood repair permanently damages long-term potential. This pattern demands a systemic intervention. High performers do not rely on fleeting bursts of motivation. Instead, they abandon the idea of feeling ready and build rigid systems to govern their work. The prefrontal cortex operates like a battery that drains with every decision made throughout the day. Relying purely on willpower to overcome the amygdala's panic is a biological losing strategy. One neurological intervention is the 5-minute rule. You commit to working on a dreaded task for just 5 minutes. This drastically lowers the barrier to entry, bypassing the amygdala's fear response, because the commitment feels entirely safe. You must also break large tasks into tiny, actionable microsteps. A massive project triggers a threat. A 10-minute subtask does not. You prevent the limbic system from registering overwhelm. The environment itself must be controlled. Completely removing digital distractions from your workspace starves the brain of its easy dopamine escape routes, forcing it to confront the work. You cannot out-willpower your biology, but you can outsmart it by engineering an environment where avoiding the task requires significantly more effort than simply executing it. A practical daily blueprint starts the moment you wake up. Establish a strict morning focus routine and schedule specific distraction-free blocks before decision fatigue sets in. This flowchart illustrates habit stacking. By linking a new behavior directly to a deeply ingrained daily habit, you automate positive actions. They no longer require conscious executive function, meaning your prefrontal cortex doesn't have to spend energy deciding to act. Procrastination is a manageable neurological challenge. It is an evolutionary mismatch between ancient survival instincts and modern responsibilities, not a permanent moral failing to carry with shame. Ask yourself this question: what could your life actually look like if you completely stopped delaying your goals, starting today? The hardest part of any task is always the act of starting, but once you push past that initial biological resistance, momentum takes over and does the rest.